Hello everyone, my name is Elias and I welcome you to the very first video of HCI Tech Quiz. I've never done YouTube videos before, but I hope I do well. I don't know, we'll see. But today's main focus, I'm going to be building a gaming computer for myself, which I've never had a real gaming computer. My graphics card now is a GTX 770, and it's not very good, especially for the new modern games out there. So I pretty much went all out on this build. I'll show you the parts that I got. From behind me you can already see that I have a lot of parts for this rig. So without further ado, let's get to it, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of how to go about building your first gaming computer as well. So let's get to it. So for the motherboard, I ended up choosing the Asus ROG Strix 370E gaming board. And what I really liked about this board was that it supports up to 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and it supports the i7 8th gen CPUs. And then of course, as I just mentioned, for the CPU we're going to be running the i7 8700K in that board, so that will be that. For the RAM, I ended up getting only 32 gigabytes of DDR4, which is the G-Skill brand. As an additional add-on, because I had to have it, I ended up getting this new little knickknack that Corsair has. It's a memory fan that has RGB lighting. So I'll see how this works. I've never actually installed one of these before, but I'm really interested on how it's going to play out. So that is that little knickknack. And then for the cooling system, that's right, the cooling system, we're just going to be using a Corsair H100 IV2. I'm actually going to be taking these two fans out. Ooh, you can't really see because of the reflection. I'm going to be taking these two fans out here, and I'm going to replace them with another knickknack that probably was an unnecessary buy, but impulse buying. I'm going to use the ML120 Pro from Corsair. So 3 of them come in here, and what I liked about these fans from what I saw from people's reviews and stuff is that the bearing inside is magnetic, so basically the fan levitates off of the actual frame itself, which allows it to spin at a high RPM without having any kind of like frictional noise. So basically it's just going to be quieter, even though I'm going to have it at a high speed to cool the system down. So I'm going to be replacing the Corsair 2 fans that come with the H100i with 2 fans from here, and then the last fan from here I'm going to be using as the exhaust for the case. For the Thermopaste, if I can find it, oh there it is. I'm ended up using the MX4 thermal compound. There was a whole entire discussion on whether I should have gotten Noctuas or even the Arctic Silver 5, but I ended up settling for the MX4. So we'll see how the CPU temperatures are once I got everything loaded up. And of course, the boring SATA cables. And then I can't forget this, but this is probably the newest thing that I've never used before in my own PCs. So this is an NVMe M.2 970 EVO Samsung solid state. So it's 500 gigabytes, and I really want to see how fast my computer boots up from this NVMe technology. And then for the power supply, this is the only piece that I did not buy brand new because I already had this. I'm going to take this out of my workstation computer, which is what the GTX 770 is running right now. So I'm going to take this power supply out of that computer, and then I'm going to install it into the new gaming computer. So it still works, and it's a platinum power supply, so we'll see how that works out. And then for the main ordeal, I cannot forget the graphics card, or maybe I would forget, but anyways, we're going to be using one of the top of the line here. So this is the Asus Strix 11 gigabyte VRAM GTX 1080 Ti graphics card, and this is going to be a huge improvement from my GTX 770. I can already feel that it's much heavier than the 770, so maybe heavier is good, I don't know, but it does have 3 fans on it, so to my understanding, the cooling on it will be significantly better than the GTX 770, because I do plan on overclocking almost all the components in this build, which I wasn't able to do before because my workstation computer, which has a Dell motherboard in it, does not do well for overclocking because the temperatures would hit like 90 degrees Celsius, which is not a very good temperature to be running your graphics card at, or your CPU for that matter. But anyways, I'm going to be housing all of these parts in the Corsair 570X, which I haven't taken out of the box yet, but I'm going to do that all at once when I unwrap all of these parts. So without further ado, let's get to unwrapping all of these parts. Yes. Oh my god, it comes with SATA cables, what the hell? Cool. So, yeah, so it's important to note that when you take the motherboard out, you could use the box to put it on, but never ever put the motherboard on the anti-static wrap itself, because the anti-static wrap is only anti-static inside, but the outside is totally static. It is actually a static collector versus you know, something that is just like normal. So yeah, don't put it on the static wrap. Ooh. Next, I'll start with the CPU. Let's see if this camera could even read the text. Can it? There's probably a setting that I have to learn to get it working like that. Next, I'm going to open up this little knickknack because I'm super interested on what the contents are of this weird little memory fan. I've never even heard of that, but the real reason of why I bought this was because the memory that I got was not RGB, because I figured that I wasn't going to do RGB in the very beginning until I got the Corsair 570X case, and then I was like, well, I might as well make as much of it RGB as possible, which is probably why I spent so much more. Maybe I'll do a review on this later on, once I figure out the configurations. Oh, here they are. This is the mounting bracket, so actually, let me grab this again. So from what I saw in the video, the demo that Corsair had, I think it just sits like that. Yeah. Oh, right here. So anyways, screws go in these little holes where you mount them. Yep. So I'll deal with this later. Just leave it all in one box so I don't lose it. Alright, I'm gonna open these up. So I'm probably gonna need scissors for these. Make sure I'm not cutting into anything. Okay. Oh wait, there's... Oh yeah. I'm gonna open it the same way. So I'm just super excited. All right, and then it should just fold right open. Beautiful. Bam. All right, this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part because honestly, all those components are like, you know, important, but this is what I live for. Cutting into the, you know what, I'm gonna try to make this box flawless. So I'm gonna cut these really nice and gentle. Open up these wing flaps. It's like a bird. Okay, no. Oh no, I freaking ripped it. Damn. No, I ripped it even more. No one saw that. Okay, the moment that I have been waiting for. Oh, okay. Here's down here. So it comes with this little CDs. These are probably adapters, just in case your power supply unit doesn't have two 8-pins. What these are just take it out of the bag so you can see. Right, it's plastic. Scissors don't do anything to it. Okay, so what this is if your power supply unit doesn't support two 8-pin connectors, you can plug in two 6-pin connectors from your power supply, and then it will act as one 8-pin. So there's that little piece of knowledge. As you can see, these are input sockets for 6 pins. So, well, the light's not really doing it justice, but yeah, there's that. Thankfully, my graphics card, or I'm sorry, my power supply does support two 8-pins because it's fully modular. So if you build something like this, you're going to want a modular power supply, just because cable management, which is going to be probably the biggest nightmare, it's going to be much easier if you have a modular power supply. So this has a backplate on it, so it's not really too dangerous to put this graphics card on the table because it has a backplate. Versus this graphics card. This graphics card does not have a backplate, so if you put this on the table and like something shocks it, it's basically donezo. So that little piece of advice. If it has a backplate, it's okay to put it on the table, but I would not suggest it because, as you can see, this little, well, let me take it out of the bag first. Damn, I have long nails and I'm still having trouble here. Having trouble getting this tape off. Mother. Okay, there we go. What? This is a beauty. Okay, yeah, so anyways, this has a backplate, so you can put this flat on the table. Just like that. But, oops. I wouldn't, just because this graphics card is too expensive and I don't want to risk anything. Has little microchips here, but that's basically it. The backplate basically protects the majority of the graphics card from any kind of static if you put it on the table. But just like I did with the motherboard, I want to put the graphics card on the box, which is there's no static conducting from this. So this is the Corsair 570X, and it's freaking beautiful. I mean, stunning. The camera's not really focusing too well at the moment. It's probably because the light is focused on another point. But yeah, so for the Corsair 570, these 3 fans that come included with the case are RGB, by which the control panel is up here. So this little panel up here controls the lighting, which I'll do a demo of it after it's all complete. But yeah, that's the case. All right, so now let's get to actually putting this baby together, which, oh man, I've been waiting for this. So yeah, I'm gonna take this case down, and then I'm gonna put the mount back up so that you can get a overhead view, and we'll go from there. Yep. So I did forget to unbox one thing, and that was the water cooler, or I'm sorry, liquid cooler. But yeah, I forgot to unbox this, but I just remembered now because I'm actually gonna set this up first. So let's go ahead and unbox this. Blah, 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 don't need any of that. Okay, so here are the two fans that come with the water cooler, liquid cooler. So let's just take this out. So this is a 240 millimeter, which fits the Corsair case, and I'm gonna use it as an intake, and I'm gonna put it on top of the case. So basically there's only gonna be one exhaust, and it's gonna be the rear fan. And this is probably one of the best ways to cool your system down, is to have, well, I mean, pretty much a balanced pressure of airflow, but I'm gonna make it more positive than negative. Negative being air going out, and positive being more air coming in. So there's gonna be 3 intake fans from the case itself, and then the 2 intake fans from the radiator, and then the exhaust will be the rear fan on the case. So where are those fans at? Oh yeah, here they are. Should probably unbox. All right, so, and these are also 120 millimeter fans. And this little box, I'm assuming, is the lightning node that they advertised on the sell page. So, cool. So in order to make these intake, basically with the frame pointing towards you, that means air is gonna flow at you, if that makes sense. So this is the frame, this is an X-shaped frame, so that's how I know that the air is gonna flow towards me. Ooh, wow, that's so smooth. We're gonna go ahead and install these. Oh no, this is an adapter. Yeah, for an AMD's. I'm sorry, yeah, a different socket. But we're using LGA 1151, so this socket will do just fine. And this is the mounting bracket that I'm supposed to put under the board, which I will do momentarily after I install the fans. So for my toolkit, I'm going to be using the iFixit. This is great. On sale, it was 50 bucks, which is great. But regular retail, I think, is about $69. But yeah, it comes with a great set of sockets. So I highly recommend, if you're going to do it yourself repairs at home, is to get an iFixit case. Maybe one of these days I'll do a review on this because I really love it. It saved me so much time, and it really wasn't that expensive. Yeah, the one thing about water coolers is that this little hose is very difficult to maneuver because it's very stiff, and you really don't want to bend it too much, because you could end up breaking the seal right here, which if you break the seal, it's going to leak the coolant inside all over your PC, and if it's on while that's happening, it could be very detrimental to your components, so you don't want to do that. So I don't want to tighten them all down yet until the very final phase of actually installing it into the case, because I might actually have to reposition the fans, as I said, to either shorten or lengthen the cables so that the mess won't be as messy. So I'm just lightly screwing it on so that it holds the fan into place at least. So it's probably going to sit like this. And so it's going to sit like this. Yeah. Alright, so the fans are now pretty much installed. I'm not going to tighten the screws down just yet because I might have to do some rearranging, so I'm going to have to take them off anyways. If that's the case, I'm going to screw everything really tight once the final stage approaches. So yeah, I'm gonna put this in the case now. Okay, so I got the case on the bench now. I'm gonna install the CPU cooler into this beautiful looking case. So for this, basically there are 4 screws. One here, here, and 2 on the bottom, which my camera probably won't get those. Probably not. I'm gonna also have to take off the top panel because the top panel also has screws that I need to be able to access. So just like the top panel, it has 4 screws like the side panel. So, oh, but these ones are a little longer. Oh, look at that. Just as the side panel, we're going to lift the top glass just straight up. Should be very simple. So, like I said, this case supports 120 millimeter. Probably should do it this way. 240 and 360. It does not support 280, which is kind of weird because most cases do, but this one in particular does not. Looks like we also have to take this top mesh off. So, up a little bit and then out. Yep. Or just straight up, you just pull straight up, huh? Yep. I think it magnetically clips. Yeah, magnetically pips to the case. So these are the little magnets right here. And you just pull straight up on this top mesh filter and it comes straight off. Cool. Tiny screws, gotta keep track of them. Make sure there are 8. There are only 7. Why are there only 7? Only 7. Because I forgot one of them in the bag. He's just all alone by himself. The 8th screw. Alright, so we have 8 of the shorter screws versus the longer screws that tied the actual fan to the radiator. So now we have the 8 screws, the small ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this cooler onto the case. And the way you do that looks fairly simple. I'm just going to screw in a couple of them and then I'll show you how I screwed it in a moment. I'm just going to hold it into place though. Now we have all these screws in place that hold, the radiator onto the case. Yeah, that's simple. Cool. All right, so I just got the cooler inside the case and now we have to put the motherboard in. So I'm gonna actually set up the motherboard now. So this is the CPU protector. Basically, you don't want to mess with the pins. Like these pins are very, very fragile. So if you mess with them and they bend, even one pin, if it bends, basically you have to buy a whole new board. And that is not fun. Ooh, shiny. Okay. Anyways, let's lift this gate up. And like I said, don't touch the pins, and when you put the CPU down, do not put it down with any force. It should just lock into place. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Alright, so there are grooves on the CPU side, right here. On that little cutout right here, where my nail is basically cutting into that little groove. It's on both sides. On the CPU, you have these little niches right here, and one right there, and one right there. And you'll notice how they fit perfectly with the CPU as far as the niches go. So what you're going to want to do is put it bottom down, top first, or put it side to side. So fit one side into the groove, do not press down, and then just drop it lightly. And then it'll fit into place, just like that. And then after that, this is probably the scariest part, especially if you're dealing with like, you know, like an i9 or a Threadripper, is to lock the arm down onto the processor. Now you're gonna have to use force in this part, but this locking mechanism should not bend the pins down below. So what we're gonna do, make sure that the processor is firmly in, and then push down on the arm, push down on the arm, push down on the arm, and then lock it into place. That's it. Alright, so now that the CPU is in place, we're gonna install the mounting bracket in order to install the CPU cooler onto the CPU itself. So the CPU mounting bracket goes along the back side of the motherboard. So I'm going to flip this over very nice and gently. And then on the back of the motherboard, you will see that there are 4 holes surrounding the CPU socket. And those 4 holes, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to plug it straight in those 4 holes until the sockets come out on the other side. Cool. And then we're just going to push that down onto the box. Then we're going to install the mounting bracket screws. So this is actually what holds the CPU cooler onto the CPU itself. So yeah, basically just screw them down. Make sure the mounting screws are nice and tight. And then if they sink like that, that's okay. That will be solved once the CPU cooler is in place. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the case on the bench now, and then I'm gonna install the motherboard in the case. So remember how I didn't screw these in all the way? It's a good thing that I didn't, because it would have been a pain to take it out. But basically these cables should be on the bottom side. So I actually have to take these fans out, rotate it 180 degrees so that these cables are on the bottom, so that they can be hidden more with this nice little shroud in the back. Alright, so I went ahead and finally screwed those 2 fans back in a better placement, so both of the cables are at the bottom of the case, as you can see. So when the motherboard sits in, I'll be able to redirect these cables through one of these holes in order to fit them onto the motherboard. So yeah. And now we're going to install the motherboard into the case. So it's important to note that the motherboard and these plates right here are not attached in the box. So you're going to have to take the plate out, and it actually comes in 2 pieces. Basically just put it onto the motherboard and clip it into place. Or you can install this plate into the board, into the case first, and then shove the ports into the plate. However, I already tried that and it didn't work out so well. So I'm going to try this method now and see if hopefully there's better results. I'm actually having a wild time right now with this little plate. That was wild. That was insane. I don't know why it was so hard to mount that, but it looks like it's finally in. I'm telling you guys, that was wild. I've never had so much trouble with the mounting plate before. Wow, maybe it's just this motherboard in general, I don't know. So like I said, just look for the sockets that have the raised little metal dots around them, and that's how you know you're supposed to screw the screws in there. Okay, so 5, cool. All right, so that's that. I guess next would be to actually install the CPU cooler onto the CPU itself, which basically you install this onto that. Now, as you can see, this one already came with Thermopaste, but I'm actually going to take this Thermopaste off, and then I'm going to apply the MX4 onto it. Yep, so I will return shortly. Alright, so the way that you clean this thermal compound off is you just get regular paper towel or microfiber cloth, but I don't have a microfiber cloth to spare on Thermopaste because once you wipe it on the Thermopaste, it's basically done, so you can't use that microfiber cloth for anything else. Yeah, so rubbing alcohol on paper towel and just go whoop, wipe it all the way. Uh-oh. That's the one thing that I kind of wanted to avoid, was it spreading around, because as you can see, the Thermopaste goes into the crevices of the sockets, and that's not a bad thing, but not the best thing either. Oh, Amazon! Yes, my monitor! Ooh, they all came! Okay, so it's pretty much clean. It's not really gonna get much cleaner than that, so yeah, that's what it looks like when it's clean. Alright, so before we actually apply the Thermopaste onto this again, the MX4 Thermopaste, I'm gonna check this mount to see if it's proper. So it's gonna be sitting on the inside, just like that. Alright, so it works, and I was just making sure that it mounted on properly. So now I'm going to apply the Thermopaste. And I'm going to apply the Thermopaste directly onto the CPU, and I'm going to use the P method, which the P method is basically put enough Thermopaste where it's the size of a pea. You know, like one of those vegetables peas? Yeah, not the pea that you leak in the toilet, you know, just the regular vegetable pea. So pea size. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to pretty much that's it. What I've seen from this MX4 though is it's a lot more viscous, a lot more liquidy. But basically it's supposed to spiral up, form this pea shape, but instead I made it a larger diameter, but less in depth. But it's basically the same concept. I'm gonna zoom back out so I can apply the cooler. So basically, like I said, once you put the cooler on, it's too late, can't go back. So gotta make sure everything is right. And once you're certain, just go boop, and apply it down. So now once it's applied down, take your lug nuts and fasten them down while still applying pressure from the CPU cooler. And what that will do is it will evenly distribute that Thermopaste onto your CPU. And it's really important not to apply too much Thermopaste because it could spill over, and sometimes that's not a good thing, that if it spills over. Okay, so that's that. So now we're going to install the RAM, and the way you do that is unclip it. There are top brackets up here, So basically, by default, they're going to be pressed up. Well, I'm trying to get a better angle here. Okay. And basically, you just got to press down. Yep. And from there, make sure the lines match up. So one side of the RAM is longer than the other. So this is the longer side. This is the shorter side. So you have to match it up with the longer and the shorter. Oh, there's the longer side. The longer side and the shorter side on the board. So yeah, we'll start installing it now. And then once it's installed inside, you'll hear it click on both sides. So listen for that click. Click, click. Nice. So that's one installed. We got 3 more to go. Same concept. I start with the long side first, and then ease the way down onto the short side. You don't want to click it until it's all the way down on both sides first. There you go. And then click on the long side and click on the short side. Yep. All right. So all the RAM is now installed. Make sure that they're all clicked in. Cool. Now we're gonna go ahead and try to install this memory fan, which I don't think will fit, but here goes nothing. Oh yeah, there's no way this is gonna fit. There's no way. Wait, oh wait, this is flexible metal though. I might be able to kind of maneuver it. So yeah, to show you what it looks like now, as you can see, it's totally pressed up against the fans. It's totally pressed up against the radiator. It's something that I'm just gonna have to live with. So I could always return it, but I really want to try this out. The way that it sits, it's just 2 metal brackets right here, and they just sit on the memory clips. So maybe it's not the most sturdy way, but we'll see how it works. I'll use it for a couple months. I think the next step would be the rear exhaust fan. Might as well, right? Alright, so let me just unwind this white cord. So remember, the frame, it's pointed towards you. That means the air is going to blow towards you. So this is going to be exhaust. So that means the fan needs to sit like this. Well, obviously on the inside, but yeah, sit this way. So we'll do that now. Go like that. Ta-da-da. Alright, case fan for the exhaust is now installed. Alright. Alright, hello, welcome back. So basically what I was doing after that break is I sat down and I was trying to figure out the best way to connect all these cables. And what I realized is that I have too many fans and not enough fan slots. And then from there, I had to figure out how to connect all the LEDs together. So I'm using the Lightning Pro node that came with the ML120 fans, which is just a little device that unfortunately is about $50 if you try to buy it separately. Now, this entire scenario would be much easier to solve if I had the Commander Pro, which is another $70. And seeing as how I don't want to purchase a $70 fan hub quite yet, I'm going to do it this way for now. So now the only thing left is to install the power supply unit and to test it, because I need to see if these fans even run. So we're going to do that now. We're going to install the power supply unit. So as I said, this is the power supply unit. I pulled this from my workstation computer. It's a EVGA Supernova 750 Platinum rating, which means that it has a very good power consumption rate compared to the bronze or even gold. Oh, one thing that was really cool is this is the power supply shroud, and originally Corsair did not make it so that the Corsair 570X came with the shroud, but I was happy to find that there it was sitting right there, and it came with the case. which is really nice because I was actually going to buy this separately, which is only $4, but then shipping was another $15, so it's $20 basically for this little piece of metal. And what this will do, that shroud, is hide all the power cables in here, and so you basically won't be able to see them. First high-end gaming computer that I'm building for myself. Even my clients have not asked me to put in this much RGB lighting or components, really, because I'm going to fill both of these slots up with Samsung SSDs, and then I'm going to put 4 terabytes in both 3.5-inch hard drive bays. So yeah, power supply is in. Let me make sure it's not squishing anything. Okay, doesn't appear so. There is a Corsair LED logo here. It lights up just white, doesn't actually change color, but that's basically what it's snugging against at the moment, but it doesn't look like it's crushing it, so it doesn't feel like it's crushing it at least, so that's good. So we'll plug in the power supply cable first. Oh, I'm sorry, not the power supply cable. The 24-pin ATX cable. This side has the letters MB on it right there. Means you plug it onto the motherboard. This side splits into, what is it, 5. So this is 10, so 14 and 10. Yeah, so 14 and 10. So these two plug into the power supply. So we'll do that now. So that feels pretty secure. Should have plugged it in on that slot, but oh well. I will clean up the cables as soon as I know that the fans turn on, at least. I just need the fans to turn on. Alright, cool. So we're gonna test the rig now. I hope it turns on. If it doesn't, I'm gonna be very depressed. No, not really, but you're gonna get firsthand whether this turns on or not. So you're gonna also see whether I failed or not. And if I did, it's okay. Mistakes are made. You learn from them and you move on. And trust me, I'm learning a lot right now about RGB lighting. So it's plugged in. I'm gonna flip it on. And as you can see, we have RGB. That is a good sign, but now I'm gonna press the power button. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go! That makes me so happy. Okay, so at this point, I just analyzed what I have to do to clean up the cables, and there's a lot of stuff I gotta do. So I'm probably not gonna be able to film this, to be honest. I gotta hit my Zen mode, I gotta play some classical music, and I gotta figure this out, but it's gonna look nice. It's gotta look nice. Just gonna turn this. It's pretty dang heavy. Alright, so basically I was able to clean up the majority of the whole mess. I just zip tied the majority of these strands together, plugged in the extra light fans from the ML120s for the radiator and the back exhaust. And then, yeah, the Samsung 500 gigabytes, I guess I'll be running those for now. So it's basically 1 terabyte of solid state storage. And then on top of that, I'm going to be using the NVMe N.2, so that's going to be cool. But now for the main course, we are going to get to installing the graphics card. This is actually what I've been waiting for. Alright, now that I have the desktop back on the bench and the overhead gliding system from a camera back set up, I went ahead and got started already. So basically what you have to do is, in this area, you have these little brackets. So what you do is, I'll just unscrew another one to show you. You unscrew the screw holding the bracket in. So after it is unscrewed, and then you lift the bracket up. That's about it. So you got to do that before you install the graphics card, or else it's not going to fit. Make sure for the GPU slot, I'm going to put it on the main GPU slot. This is I think it's times 16 for the PCI Express lane. But anyway, so you hit this clip down. So it's going to be in a position initially. You hit it down, and then that will open up the slot mechanism for you. And then you just put the graphics card in. Now, I might have some clearance issues here because of this memory fan, but actually it doesn't appear so. So it looks good. Looks great. Okay, now I just need to clip it down. There we go. And then you're gonna want to hear that click. Now, you're not done yet. Unfortunately, you have to screw the screws back in, but of course without that black bracket. Just screw the screw in the hole, and that will hold the graphics card in place. I don't know if you can actually tell, but the screw hole is not aligning, so you're gonna have to push it in to align that hole. Once you push it in and it's aligned, just screw it down. And of course you have to screw it down straight, or it's gonna have resistance while you screw it in, diagonal or however else. And make sure that's tight. So this is the only screw that you really want to make sure is super duper tight. All right, and that is tight on there. Now it's okay if this end jiggles, but you don't want this end jiggling with this end, so it's kind of okay. So now the last element would be to connect the power supply cable from, the PCI cable from the power supply into the graphics card. I don't know where it is though, I just can't find it. And you have it here. So the 8-pin goes into the power supply where it is labeled for the VGA slot. And then since this is a graphics card that requires two 8-pin PCI, you have that here. So basically each, so this 6-pin and this 2-pin make 8, and this 6-pin and 2-pin make 8. I'm gonna find the VGA cable right here. Oh, perfect, got it. All right, it's plugged in now. And then plug the cables in to the GPU. So like I said, it's gonna be 6 plus 2, 6 plus 2. So I'll start with the lowest, or the one lower on the cable, because it's easier to maneuver, because it's much less flexible versus the top portion. So I'm gonna plug this in to the inner slot. So I hit the switch. Ooh, the lights show, that is good. RGB, nice. And then I'm gonna hit the power button. 3, 2, 1, and go. Ooh, and are the fans running? Yes, they are. But they just stopped. I don't know if that's normal or not. I do know that some graphics cards, they save their fan speed unless they hit a certain temperature. So maybe that's why it's not running anymore. I guess we won't actually know until I install the operating system and run a benchmark. So I'm gonna do that now, but first I'm gonna install the M.2 NVMe into that port. Is it gonna focus? You have this little notch that actually fits onto the motherboard, and this is the notch that the NVMe will actually sit on. And then once this is on and the NVMe is placed on it, you screw it in with this screw right here. So you screw this into this socket, and that will glue pretty much the NVMe to this mounting socket. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. All right, so there you have it. One mounted NVMe M.2 Sata. That pretty much completes the build. I'm gonna see if I forgot something. I'm gonna first clean up because as you can see, it's quite messy. And I really didn't plan for everything to be so messy, but like I said, I kind of rushed this because I was super excited to get this up and running. So yeah, let me clean up first. Alright, so I already switched on the power switch for the power supply unit. Now I'm going to just press this button right here and pray to God that I did not break anything. Alright, I like that. So as you can see, the fans, they stop spinning on boot up because it's idle. So that's a good thing, that's not a bad thing. As far as the RGB profile goes, it's pretty mixed matched. So hey, how's it going, guys? So something happened yesterday with the motherboard, and basically what you saw was that the computer restarted itself upon 3 seconds, or what is it, 4 seconds of boot, which it's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to boot and run, you know, indefinitely until you shut it off. So I must have been too tired, but I didn't notice that the debug light, which was the red light that you see in the video, was on, and it was on the CPU in particular, which that's never a good sign. So what I ended up doing, because I was so frustrated yesterday, was I ended up going home, getting a good night's rest because I really needed it, and now I'm back in the office and I'm gonna do some debugging. So first I'm going to take the motherboard out, and then I'm going to just put it on my bench, some anti-static, you know, probably a piece of cardboard, and then I'm going to plug in only the CPU, the water pump to the CPU, and the 24-pin ATX that goes from the power supply, and then the 8-pin for the CPU. I'm going to plug those in. And then I'm also plugging the display, because the motherboard has a integrated graphics, and I believe it's a DVI port. So I'm going to see if it displays. If it displays, then there's something else in the case that must have shorted the circuit, preventing the CPU from actually booting up. If it doesn't display, then most likely the board shorted out somewhere along the installation process, or the CPU shorted out, which is the more unlikely scenario, because for new builds, as long as you apply the CPU correctly during the initial phase, the CPU will never short. But of course, there are those rare instances where if you apply too much pressure, or if you drop the CPU, or if your pump doesn't work, or your cooler doesn't work, and then the CPU overheats upon booting it up, then it can fry the CPU in that manner. But I made sure that all those were proper, at least. So I'm going to get started with the debugging test. I'm probably not going to record it. Today is going to be the majority of trying to figure out what went wrong and then getting it started up, because I'm still excited to get this computer up and running. I just I want to do it with complete focus now. So yeah, if I get everything booted up, you will basically see the image of the working computer and it displaying to the monitor. So till then, probably a couple of hours from now, I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Okay, so I actually already booted it up, and it does turn on, thankfully. So she does live, but I'm gonna boot it up. So actually did plug in the DRAM because I wanted to make sure the RAM also works. But initially, the RAM was not installed, and it was just the CPU, the liquid cooling block, and that was the only thing. And then 24 pin, which is right here, and then the 8-pin CPU up here. So those are the only things plugged in. It booted up, and the debug lights are down here. And then next I went to plug in the RAM to make sure the RAM works, which is also indicated here, and I'll show you what it is. But basically I'm going to short the board as far as the power switch and turn it on so you can see how the debug sequence works. So basically that sequence. So I'm going to short it out right now. Alright, cool. So as you can see, it immediately went to the CPU. The CPU was good. So it went to the DRAM was good, so it turned off. And then it went to the VGA, the display works. As you can see, it's in the BIOS. And then lastly was the boot. But of course the boot isn't gonna work because there's no operating system. So yeah, that's how the debug lights work. Basically, if it's good, the light turns off. If it's bad, it stays on. Okay, so the batteries in my transmitter from my lavalier mic just died, so I'm gonna have to use the microphone on the camera, which still isn't too bad. So I just want to share this momentous time right now because it all boots up, all turns on, even displays, and I already tested it, but I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like now. So I'm gonna flip the switch. Okay, there we go. And I think you saw a little flash right there. And then I'm gonna, and that little LED. Let's focus that first. And then I'm gonna press the power button and 3, 2, 1, ta-da! And that's what it all looks like. Yeah, with this board, like I said, the red LEDs on it, it actually looks pretty nice. I like it. And then the red hawk on the bottom looks really clean with the Republica Gamers on the graphics card. So far I think it looks pretty great. Yeah, there's the overall view. I even got the little Corsair on the bottom running. And then of course the display says reboot and select the proper boot device. So the next thing would be to install Windows 10 on the NVMe. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is the final product I bring to you. My very first gaming rig. We're going to be running that Strix 1080 Ti card. We're going to be running a i7 8700K. We're going to be running 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM running at 3200 megahertz. We're going to be running 8 terabytes of just regular hard drive storage, and then we're going to be running 2 Samsungs, each with 500 gigabytes of solid state storage space. Alright, so let's turn this up so I can show you how beautiful this is. Alright, so I'm going to hit that power button. Ready? Boop. Oh wow, look at those fans. Look at those fans, and look at this board. All lit up, nice, pretty, and red. We have the RGB memory fan from Corsair. That's the Dominator. We have some ML120 fans that are beautiful looking. Alright, and this is it. I'm running a Windows 10 Pro. I just purchased that license. It was about $200, but it is what it is.